My skin tone's not going great. Okay. Welcome to the Propaganda Report. This is Monica Perez with my co-host, Brad Binkley, and our favorite interview guest and activist, election integrity activist, Garland Favorito of VoterGA. And we are here to get an update on the latest. You had a press conference today, right?
Yeah, we did. I think we made a lot of people upset.
Oh my gosh, really? I'm out of the loop. You got to tell us.
Well, we found out that 74 counties in Georgia could not produce their original ballot images for the November 2020 election. It's something we've been researching and working on for literally about 2 months, maybe even three. Actually, probably about 3 months. And we finally released a lot of the information. Still don't have it all completely assembled, but we found that 74 counties are unable to give us the ballot images from the November 2020 election. Now, the two things to understand that are important is one is the images are created automatically by the voting system, and the voting system has to have those to tabulate. So if they don't have them, they had to have destroyed them. And if they destroyed them, they violated both federal and state law because the retention period is 22 months for federal and 24 months for state. So I don't know how you get around that.
It's only been 12 months.
Well, right. And they were actually destroyed within 30 to 60 days or 90 days. It was destroyed pretty early, well before this election. And we have these admissions from the elections directors themselves in most cases. And even
they were destroyed?
Yes.
And there is no other explanation,
right? Right. Even some of their attorneys had that. Yeah, there's no other explanation. If you don't have them, that they were automatically created and you don't have them, then they had to have been destroyed. There's no other explanation for this. So we announced that, and we named counties and upset a few elections directors who had given us information and then said that that wasn't true. But we repeated back to him, here's what we got from you. So it was quite interesting. Some counties didn't have anything. Some counties tried to say, we'll give you the recount images, but the recount images don't have what you need for audit purposes, because on the original images, you have the original time stamp for the scanning that you can use for audit. You have what they call the metadata, which is how it shows you how the votes are interpreted. And they have the other problem is, the images could have been replaced between the two different scans, the original scan and the recount scan, which was about a month later.
How about the resolution? Is the recount scan the same resolution as the original?
Yeah, it is. It is. So that part doesn't change. So,
wow. So what was their response to you today?
Well, a couple of elections directors were kind of upset, but I just said, hey, here's what we got. You show us something different, we'll change it. And one of them said, okay, we'll try to find the 9,500 images that we're missing, and the other ones didn't have any original images at all. So basically it came out to 4 categories. We had ones that didn't have any images, ones that didn't have any originals, but they had recount images, which aren't of any value to us. And then they had ones that were incomplete. So they would be missing, for example, all of the mail-in ballot images, or they'd be missing all of the in-person voting images, or some combination of those two things in some cases. So we just didn't have those were 3 categories, and the last category were the ones with the open records request, which they tried to frustrate us by not allowing, not giving us the images. So, and that's what we presented. We put the categories in each of the counties in each of those 4 categories.
Well, I'm glad they decided that they could try and find them after all this happened.
Now, what gives you the right to ask for them?
Open records.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's an election record, and it is in the public domain, and they should have been provided. They should have been preserved. All election records have to be preserved, whether they're in the public domain or not. And that's the law, the two and the four, 22 months and 24 months. And then now there are subject to open records historically, based on the new law that went into effect on March with Senate Bill 202. The public ballot images are now public record, and that's retroactive. So you can get up in anything. So we went back and we got the ones for the November election and tried to. And a lot of the counties were able to provide those with little or no problem. In fact, the majority did, but then there were a near majority that didn't. So it was almost 50-50. About 48% couldn't come up with it.
Wow.
Yeah, so we thought that was kind of intriguing. It's like you conducted the election and you didn't maintain the records you were supposed to maintain according to federal and state law.
Regarding your lawsuit against Dominion, where the judge had said, actually prior to the November 2020 election, that the way that Dominion worked was already in violation of the Georgia law, because you have to produce an auditable image that the voter can also verify, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So these guys have to, Dominion kicks out this image. Is that the kind of auditable image that's required by law, and that Dominion happens to kick out something like that, and that's part of the law? Like, you have to have that? Oh, or do you just have to retain all records that are produced? Like, did they have to produce these records? Is that part of the law? Like, can you refresh my memory on what the law?
Sure. So you have to retain all election records, basically. And a ballot image is probably the most important election record next to the actual election results themselves. So that's the most important thing to retain. They didn't do that. Now, then they were made public in March. So they had to be retained. And then when they were made public in March, we were able to seek, open records requests to get them. And then we found out that they didn't retain them in accordance with the federal and state law.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we ended up.
Oh my gosh. So what's the next step?
I don't, it's a good question. We have a couple of options. We could file some type of civil suit against the counties. We could also file a civil suit for the ones who violated the open records request law. We had another 18 counties, which was, in that 74, that just refused to reply. So, maybe, I guess about 6 of those have now said that they have something in the mail for us. So we're kind of holding off our final publishing to try to give these 6 the benefit of the doubt and get their stuff in time, and then before we make a final publishing of our results.
And what will you do? So there's 74 counties that you're waiting on this stuff. Are you going to look at those ballots, literally recount them yourself to the extent you can?
Well, yes. First of all, we're only waiting on 6 counties. We already have admissions. Yeah, we already have admissions from 56 counties.
Oh, that they're never going to be able to produce those ballots?
That's what they say.
That's a violation of the law, correct?
Wow, yeah. I mean, I figured they were going to they were just snowing you, but they're really gone forever, you're saying.
They might be snowing us, but now they're in trouble, because if they snowed us with false information, then I don't think they realized that what they were snowing us with was against the law. So,
well, I mean, then there's never an answer. Although, do you have enough counties? All we've ever talked about really is Fulton. as far as like what you've actually done. So are there enough counties and enough public access to those ballots for you to come up with a number that you think are illegitimate ballot wise? I mean, because if you're looking for an election changing result, you're talking about, I mean, I think 20,000 wrong votes up and down the ballot would change the composition of the Senate and the resident in the White House. Well, the resident of the White House wouldn't change, but the electoral votes from Georgia would change.
Right.
So, yeah, would you, so what could you come up with now as far as what are available open records?
What could we come up with?
Like, how many ballots could you count right now? Like, I know you did look at a lot of ballots and, you know, that in the narrow confines of Fulton stuff, but right now, what you have, like, could you look through them and say, oh, look, these are obviously not filled in by a person. Oh, but you can't because that only works with mail-in ballots. Like the stuff that was in there, there's really.
Yes.
Gosh.
What's the remedy under the law for violating the statute?
Yeah, so good question. It's a misdemeanor, Brad.
Wow.
We can, well, actually, I'm sorry, open records request is a misdemeanor. I don't know what the remedy is for the destroying the record. So that may not be a misdemeanor. Anyway, I forgot. You made a point, Monica. I forgot what I wanted to comment on that. But
I just am. You know, what can you really do? Because if the only way to really look at, I mean, there were different things that you were trying to do with Fulton, and the thing was, the mail-ins and versus the.
Yeah. So you were asking me what can we do with them once we got them? So we do have the capability to count them. We could count, certain races and records, and we also have the capability to reconcile them with the official count. So I'll give you an example. We'll take Fulton County, for example, since we're always picking on them. So Fulton County did not have any in-person images whatsoever. They have admitted that they have no in-person images. So they have partial, what we call, that's a partial or an incomplete. And what they do have is the mail-in ballot images. But what we know from counting these mail-in ballot images, we know that there are 17,000 and about 700 more votes that were certified in Fulton County than what they had ballot images for. So, I mean, the margin of victory in the presidential race was
less than
11. Yeah, it was 11.
And that was around what it was for the Senate.
Well, right, and the margin of victory, the margin that made a runoff, or required a runoff, was probably about 17,000. So that's what they have. They have 17.7. So again, it's just throws everything into question.
Yeah. So there would have been things you could do. So this is like your classic kind of forgiveness is easier to ask for than permission. And they're like, well, look, we'll take our lumps. I mean, a misdemeanor is simply not enough of a penalty to deter that kind of action when you're talking about the stakes being so high.
Yeah, it's $1,000 fine or up to a year in prison.
Right. And here's the kicker, though. See, in fairness to the counties, they operated on instructions from the Secretary of State's office. So the Secretary of State's office said, okay, yeah, it's okay to overwrite the memory cards, which happen to have the ballot images on. The memory cards are in your precinct scanners. And we got at least one or more documents from the Secretary of State's office authorizing the destruction of the ballot images on the cards, which is a direct violation of federal law. And we had many counties told us that they were verbally instructed that they could do that. So you think about this for a minute. We spent $100 million on a voting system, well over 100, plus $100 million over 10 years, and they can't afford $10 memory cards, a couple of $10 memory cards for each precinct scanner. Hard to imagine that cost was a factor here. Just not believable, but that's what we're hearing.
We know that people in that position are not, or we have evidence to suggest that people in that position in the past have not been above doing that, such as in 2016, when the FBI literally was examining the servers in Kennesaw.
Right.
And Secretary of State Kemp, somehow on his watch, those servers got wiped before the investigation was satisfied.
Correct. And right after the lawsuit was filed. That was right after the Curling v. Raffensperger lawsuit was filed. So in fairness to the county election directors, most of the problems up at the Secretary of State's level, office. But one thing I did want to mention, just so everybody understands that how these images are created automatically. There's one of three ways. One is if you mail in, typically a scanner will put these in a memory card, and then the memory card is loaded into the server, or memory stick, I should say, or flash drive.
Where?
They're loaded into the server.
Where does the transition take place between a ballot that's mailed in and putting it on a memory stick? Is that at the post office, or is that a polling place?
Well, no, they scan those. The elections officials scan those
before election
when they receive it, typically before election day, right, or during elections day
in some government office in the Capitol.
Right, and then they create the memory sticks, load them into their server. That's option number one. Option number two is they're in the precinct. There's typical scanners have two compact flash memory cards, like are in your cameras, and they create a redundant set of the images, and then they will upload one of those sets, they being elections officials, into their server. And then the third option is on a high-speed scanning. We showed a diagram of all this. On high-speed scanning, the scanner goes directly into the server with the images through a network connection. So that's typically the three normal ways where the data gets to the server.
And that network connection, well, that wasn't what was happening with Kennesaw. It was that the voter registration was kind of open to hackers.
Well, right, not just the voter registration, but the entire central election management server.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which, yeah, it is. It's absolutely
that was 2016
crazy.
When Hillary won some weird counties in Georgia, right?
It was, and that was when they found that server had been open and exposed. First of all, Logan Lamb identified originally, and then 6 months later, it still is, as the security loop had not been closed, and the security vulnerability was still there. But then, as we did more research in it, we found out that vulnerability, which is a Drupal vulnerability, goes all the way back to when the server was originally installed, because that was when the software had that vulnerability from day one. So it was wide open for virtually anyone in the entire world.
That way on purpose.
It seems like that way.
I mean, the government's not above putting back doors into this stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely a backdoor if you've ever seen one. I mean, that had to be a backdoor.
When you impeach the Secretary of State, it seems like 28 counties admitting that they're in violation of the law, the elections law, would be grounds for impeaching a Secretary of State if that's possible.
Well, there's an effort to recall him now, which is basically the citizens dumping him. But the problem with trying to recall somebody, it takes over a statewide office. It takes over 1.5 million votes, and you have to collect those in 2 months. So it's not really a viable activity for the most part.
Is he up for re-election in 22?
He will be, yes.
What do you think? Is he even going to get on the ballot?
Well, he's going to be on the ballot if he chooses to run. Right now he's probably the most.
Oh, because everybody gets on the ballot. Yeah.
Well,
I just wonder, will kind of Republican challenge him?
Not everybody, but the incumbent gets on the ballot. Yeah, he's got 3 Republican challengers already: Jody Hice, David Belle, and T.J. Hudson.
What I'm saying is, maybe I don't remember how it works correctly, but there's no primary, right? Could another Republican be on the ballot in November 2022? Yes. Yeah.
So there will be a primary for Secretary of State on the Republican and the Democrat side. The Republicans are having Congressman Jody Hice is running for Secretary of State, as in as is David Belle and T.J. Hudson, are three of the candidates for Secretary of State that will be opposing Brad Raffensperger on the Republican side.
But that's in a primary. Prior
Exactly.
to November.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if Raffensperger, do you think Raffensperger is going to win that primary? Is my question.
I'm not sure that Raffensperger is going to run, to be honest with you.
Wow. Well, he'll
Right
probably
now-
do something else. I'm sure he's up for promotion now. You know how it works.
Well, I mean, he's probably about the most unpopular politician in
An
Georgia right
appointment.
now.
He'll get an appointment. Look at the 9/11 heroes.
Mhm.
the
Well,
guys
he's
who all
got the
dropped the
backing
ball
of the
got
mainstream
promoted.
media, though, so that's the problem, though. Even though if the people don't like him, mainstream media can create this false perception of him. He said back in May that he was going to run again, but maybe things have changed since then.
Yeah, they make him ambassador to Canada or Thailand or something. You know what I mean? Like he's got to be rewarded.
Yeah, it could be. I just I don't. He's going to have a really tough uphill battle, even with having the machines on his side. So I just don't see that he's going to be a viable candidate. But we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know if he's going to run. I know that he's been calling a lot of his supporters who donated to him before, and they are refusing to donate to him this time. And he's getting an earful when he calls them. So I've known like several folks that have done this. So I just don't know if he's going to be viable.
I want to ask you back to the ballot issue. So, to what extent have you or someone you trust examined Georgia ballots on a wider scale? Like you did as much as you could in Fulton, short of the final recount. And I'm just wondering if you did that if you or anybody else did that across Georgia, or is Fulton the one that's been the most scrutinized?
We haven't been able to see a single physical ballot yet in any county. Fulton is the one that's most scrutinized. And that's the one where we tried the hardest to get to see the ballots because we have the most evidence. There's just overwhelming evidence that there are problems in Fulton County.
But you did see some Fulton County ballots that, didn't you see the open records of the scanned ballots in Fulton?
We have the low resolution 200 DPI ballot images of the mail-in votes in Fulton. That's the only thing we have.
Oh, but what about if it's public record to have all of the ballots? Why don't you have that?
Because they didn't have them. They're one of the counties that
Okay.
couldn't produce. They're one of those 74.
There's a lot of detail over the year that it's hard to keep it straight, but
it really is.
Right.
My head's swimming all the time.
I remember that issue. I remember us talking about that issue. It was shocking. And then like on the same day Raffensperger talks about that, he's like, I am shocked to find, election problems this year around. Remember, it was just so crazy. There was a lot of craziness going on, but okay. So, wow. So, cause Fulton would have, you could see, I'm sure there are some patterns that would be highly unlikely. And like they had all of those, that very high number of adjudication and so.
Yeah, which still hasn't been explained properly. I don't know how 103 or 4,000 out of 110 or 13 end up in adjudication. That's very, I don't know.
What did Isaacson ever do? Or Purdue? It was Purdue. Who supposedly lost to Ossoff? Like, why is he not taking more of a role in this? Like, he personally probably had more, could himself also claim standing, whereas you're standing, hopefully, and I want to hear if you filed the appeal or not. But before we get to that, can you say don't you think that Purdue had absolute, indisputable standing?
Well, according to the ruling that we got from the court, I don't know that a candidate would have fared any better based on the bogus ruling that we got.
Right.
I do, which I'll explain in just a second. But I do understand that David Perdue is going to make an announcement if he didn't make it today. And it's something to do with election integrity and what he may or may not be doing. But that's all I know about that for right now. So but he certainly could have done more than he has been doing.
Right. And what about the appeal?
Okay, the appeal in regards to the standing issue. So what the judge ruled was that we didn't have a particularized injury, which is part of standing, really. So we argued that we do have a particularized injury verbally. We said there's two sets of classes, a class of voters. Our class had their votes diluted by ballot stuffing, and the other class had their votes strengthened by ballot stuffing, depending upon what the stuffing shows.
Which is how they establish standing in gerrymandering cases, by the way, which are well established.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why they say,
Wow.
like, you're a class. If you're a class by race or whatever, that's why you have standing in a
Yeah,
gerrymandering dispute.
that's exactly right. So this is exactly what we had. We argued this. And we also argued Supreme Court rulings. And what the thing that I mentioned today in our press conference was that regardless of where you are in America, the U.S. Supreme Court has 100 years of precedence that you have the standing. And the first thing is that the Supreme Court back in 1915, U.S. v. Mosley, ruled that your right to have your vote count protected is as equally open, or your right to vote is as equally open to protection as your right to put a ballot in the ballot box. And then 50 years later, Reynolds v. Sims ruled that your right to vote cannot be diluted from ballot stuffing, which is exactly what our argument. That's exactly our case.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
I mean, scanning things over and over again, I mean, for starters.
Yeah. So the U.S. Supreme Court has already come down on our side. So the judge had to know this when he made the ruling.
Yeah.
He had to know that his order and his attempt to reference the 11th Circuit ruling for Lynn Wood's case, when Lynn was a single voter,
that was amazing.
It doesn't hold water in our case, and he has to know that. And he has to know
that the precedent was established in 2021 is just preposterous. I mean, there's absolutely no chance that this hadn't been ruled upon at the Supreme Court level prior to 2021.
Right.
Anyway, right. So did you file the appeal?
We announced that we are filing the notice of appeal. So the way it works is we file the notice of appeal, which we'll file either today or tomorrow morning. And then we will get the case docketed. That's the next thing that happens. And then we will release our brief.
Okay. So you can't give us any details on... There's nothing in the public record that has actual specifics in it. You're not ready for that.
Well, we will appeal on multiple grounds. There'll be at least more than one ground. And I'm convinced that we'll win, and we'll come back to the Judge Merrill's court one more time, and then we'll get a favorable ruling. The second time around, the judges then do the right thing once they're overturned. So I'm convinced that he'll do the right thing next time we go down there.
It did seem to come out of nowhere. I mean, I remember an AJC article when the judge dismissed the case recently, saying after a series of negative rulings. And I mean, I remember one or two things that I thought was squishy, but once he said, I think it was in May, that you could have access to the ballots, I mean, I felt like the rest of the stuff was just housekeeping so that he wouldn't be overturned on appeal. And I was surprised by this final ruling. But so it would be great if that gets turned around. Of course, I'm still trying to fully absorb this idea that all those ballots are missing and there's no remedy. I mean, that seems to be a recurring problem with these laws, is that the audit found irregularities, but there's absolutely no next step in the laws. I mean, that I like that you don't get discouraged by this stuff and are pursuing things like how illegal the Dominion voting machines are and these other flaws in the law. It just takes a lot of patience.
They're admitting to breaking the law, and there's just no $1,000 fine, but how do you pursue that? And that those fines, they get dropped down to pretty minimum when in these cases.
Well, they might not even have to pay them. The government might
so
pay.
like basically no punishment.
Sure.
It just seems like it should be a little stricter. And with the judge, I think part of the problem, at least from a judge perspective, is when they have Georgia, all these news articles saying that they're considering convening a grand jury to probe whether Trump and his allies interfered, and they got Raffensperger as the good guy standing up to that, and the national spotlight's being put on that narrative. Then I think that that's going to intimidate some judges into not wanting to put their hands on this stuff. It's media manipulation and control.
Yeah, I mean, and we got some indication that the judge kind of wanted to get rid of the case a few months ago, but when he kind of invited the defense to file a motion to dismiss,
Oh, yeah.
that really started to trigger us, and we were looking at each other and saying, "What?"
Based on
Why would he be doing
standing,
that?
which absolutely positively should have been squared away up front. I mean, that's when a court doesn't even take a case because of standing. That's a very common thing.
Correct, and if we didn't have standing, he wouldn't have ruled to unseal the ballots. So,
Oh, that's a
yeah,
great point. Wow. Yeah.
well, plus, on top of that, I mean, we had the whole issue of sovereign immunity, and that was the question about who are the correct parties. So if there
Right.
was an issue of standing, that would have, and if there was a legitimate issue of standing, it would have come up at that time.
Unless there was a lot of funny business behind the scenes manipulating when these guys rolled their stuff out for the maximum amount of time wasting and everything else, which I think there definitely was. What I'd like to do is, because we have a very special, I'm not going to call it a surprise. I don't know if it's a surprise, but it'll be a surprise for people watching. Something cool is going to happen in about 15 minutes. So before that, I would like to do other cool things, which would be get questions and comments from the chat. And Binkley, if you wouldn't mind, I'll man the pulling them up. If you don't mind reading them, and Garland, you can just respond. It's going to take me a second to cue it up. Oh my gosh. Let's just verify that.
Ismcant says, did I hear the ballots are destroyed?
No, not today. What we were talking about is the ballot images, the electronic ballot images, original ones that are no longer available in many counties, not all counties. But not the physical ballots.
UD says, Garland is my hero.
Well, thanks, UD.
Ismcant says, okay, Garland, but I've been told this is the safest and most secure election. So check.
Yeah, that's what Brad Raffensperger told
All
the
time.
Wall Street Journal back in November, and we're still finding more evidence coming out.
I think Nydia is chiming in with a correction about the Dominion voting. Or maybe it's
Nydia?
Ted.
Lawsuit is against the state of Georgia.
Correct. Which is, I thought, what I said.
John says none of the election officials care because they know no one will ever hold them accountable.
That's a very good point. And it's very difficult to hold them accountable.
Matt says, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I'm understanding that your case got dismissed because of standing. So Ruby Freeman gets off. That's horrible, and I will never vote again.
Well, I don't want to encourage people not to vote. I think you should still go ahead and keep voting. But I definitely understand your frustration. So, however, there really is not a direct connection between our case and Ruby Freeman, because remember, that is a criminal issue if in fact they committed a crime, and we're in civil court. So there is not necessarily a direct relationship. So I would, the biggest problem is trying to get these charges to a grand jury so they can either indict with a true bill or say, no, there's not enough evidence, there's no bill. So that's really that's a criminal matter, and it's not directed. It's possible criminal charges can be brought against some of these folks, even regardless of the civil matter. But the civil matter typically provides more evidence for criminal matter.
Post says not voting gives them election by default.
Yeah, that's why you should vote.
Joe says, so can we now all agree I was right 11 months ago that this was a coup? LOL.
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue with him on that.
Legit Bat Podcast says, hey, you lovely peoples. Hey, Legit Bat. Joe says, there is no standing for upholding the law. Haha. Aviva Sings Out says, this podcast is standing up for the law, and the more voices that stand up, the more powerful this movement is. We are doing it.
I like it.
So,
And she's certainly doing her part too.
Aviva says, now discussion of this audit can almost get you canceled. True.
Well, it did today. We were blown off of YouTube. The press conference was not live streamed, and it was also blown off of Facebook. Neither one of them are allowed to carry it. However, one of our supporters was actually live streaming herself, and that one got through. So we did get it out there.
Did you see that my Facebook got canceled while we were doing this, Binkley? I mean, I don't know if I got thrown off of Facebook, but it said Facebook canceled this live stream. So we're not on Facebook.
I had no idea. Well, Facebook did make a promise to remove election, quote, disinformation.
So I didn't know. It said, and it didn't say like something went wrong. It said.
That's probably why. This probably hit one of their algos.
Does that mean that I think that just takes the thing off.
I think you just get to time out or something for.
Yeah, I don't care.
Richard says, could you get the original paper ballots when you cannot get the ballot images?
An excellent question. And I think that would justify getting the original paper ballots. Or it certainly would be a good evidence and a good rationale to get the original ballot.
This is an interesting point.
Matt says the Dems spent over $40 million on investigating Trump that the Democrats produced on person. So basically, the Democrats robbed taxpayers of over $40 million, but people still vote for it.
So they're voting for Democrats, even though they wasted all that time and effort on the Russian collusion investigation, which was an election integrity issue. It wasn't even election integrity. It was about influence. It was just even about influence. It wasn't about disenfranchising people. It wasn't about messing with the actual counts. It was just about who was putting ads on Facebook. And they spent all that money and they won't even continue to pursue this.
Why aren't more Republicans funding these audits? That's a good question.
This was Joe's comment about Raffensperger.
He's got his money. I'm sure he got that book deal, that bogus book deal.
Yeah. Yeah,
oh, that's how people get payola, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is interesting that Republicans don't want to touch the audits for the most part.
Misha says we needed a fair checks and balance. FOIA warrants courts need their checks and balance. More FOIAs are needed.
And of course, that FOIA is Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
Ted Metz is running for Secretary of State. Is that true?
Yes, I think it is. I'm waiting to see his campaign.
And Operation Educate is also running.
He is Operation Educate. That's Ted.
Oh, that's Ted right there.
Okay.
Yeah. He is educating us.
I thought we had a competition in the chats here.
Yeah.
Kelly says, thank you for reporting on this, Garland.
You're welcome. We're going to keep up. We got lots more to get out there. It's still just, I won't say we're barely down the tip of the iceberg and stuff that we have, evidence that we have.
All right. Matt says, what is that? PEO?
Oh, people audit.
Can people audit the judge's finances?
Not that I know of.
Achilles says, OMG, I'm so mad now. This is why we need a grassroots movement to run and take certain offices and really watch these elections so there's no cheating.
Yeah, it's hard to do when all the money, we talked about the money today, that influences.
Mr. Owen says Garland's patience is the eighth wonder of the world.
That's Matt Rowan's side. He's doing a lot of great stuff himself.
Kelly says, Oh,
Oops.
we got that.
Sorry.
I'd like to thank Garland for bringing some balance back to the community.
Yeah, so that's an interesting comment. And I think what she means by that is that a lot of the folks that are election integrity advocates, for the most part, have been Democrats. There have not been too many Republican election integrity advocates, and there are almost no nonpartisan election integrity advocates like our organization. So, and I call them the fair weather friends of election integrity. A lot of folks are fair weather friends of election integrity because if their candidate is losing, they're all about it. But then if their candidates are winning, suddenly they don't care anymore. So we've been consistent in caring regardless of who is winning. I think that has made us pretty unique even around the country.
All right. Richard says, could we get the original paper ballots if the county does not have the ballot images?
Yeah, I think that came up earlier. That I think he mentioned that once. And I think that's probably the best question of the night. I think it's a really good point. And you certainly could justify getting them, if the ballot images have been destroyed. I would certainly want to make that argument.
So they still have paper ballots that they scan, even if it's they don't have like screen marking, right? The Dominion ones in Georgia are not screen marked.
So when you say screen mark, I want to make sure I know what you're.
I mean, somebody uses a pen or a pencil, even if they're not mailing it in.
Well, no. So the Georgia system uses the touchscreen ballot marking device.
Right.
The difference is it prints a piece of paper.
So then what's an original paper ballot? He's the only thing that could have a paper ballot is a mail-in, right?
Well, no. I mean, the original paper ballot is also what the BMD ballot marking device touchscreen produces.
That you got to take home with you?
And you scan in. No, they have to scan that in to get your vote counted. So let's walk through this.
So, wow. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah. So
because they suggest that satisfies the requirement that you get to look at your own ballot, but it doesn't.
Exactly. Right. Because the BMD puts the votes in the barcode, the QR code that you can't read. And then you scan that in, your vote's counted, but you still don't know what it said. It's just absolutely absurd. And the U.S. District Court has already agreed that that's not valid.
Let's go, Brandon.
He's talking about Brandon Beach, the state senator.
Oh, is that right?
He's definitely. Is he seriously? Because "Let's Go Brandon" is a hilarious joke that means F Joe Biden.
You know what that means, right, Garland?
No. Fill me in.
Fill him in. This is my favorite thing that's happened in the past week and a half. I'll continue.
People have been chanting F
Tell
Joe
him the whole
Biden.
story. Tell him the whole story.
So at live events, college football games, other events, there was people, this is for a little while now, we're chanting F Joe Biden. It's that they were saying it, the full word, and you could hear them clearly. And this continued. And then at a race, like a NASCAR race or something, you could clearly hear the crowd chanting F Joe Biden, just clearly. And the reporter, an NBC reporter, was interviewing the winner of the race, and you could hear F Joe Biden clearly in the background. And she goes, you hear them, they're cheering for you in the background. They're saying, "Let's go, Brandon." She clearly covered it up, ignored it. And so the thing became that instead of chanting "Let's go" or F Joe Biden at all these live events, college football games, baseball games, anywhere there's live, people would chant "Let's go, Brandon" as a way to say F Joe Biden.
That's funny. So I thought they were talking about Brandon Beach, the state senator. So
well, he can use that.
Yes, he can.
Use that. That would be fantastic. It'd just triple it. You could then we can resuscitate the whole thing. That's really funny.
I'm glad you enlightened me on that.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I have friends who have LGB stickers now because they're part of the LGBTFJB community. Yeah. And we don't even care about Biden. I don't even care about that. I'm not a Democrat or Republican or anything. I don't care at all. I just think it's hilarious.
There was a banner with an airplane that flew over the UGA game this past weekend that had "Let's Go Brandon" banner flying behind it.
So when was the race? I don't know when that was. That was a NASCAR race.
NASCAR race a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, in Talladega.
Before Halloween. because
Oh,
people
is that
were
in Talladega?
dressed up
Okay.
on Halloween with LGB gear.
Can you repeat where I can watch the press conference? I missed it because I was at work.
It'll be up on VoterGA.org events tab tonight. As soon as we can get it up there. It should have been there, but we were blasted off of Facebook. And excuse me, I think it is on our Facebook page or my personal page on Facebook from one of our supporters who put it up there. Friend, she was at the press conference and live streamed it, and that one slipped through.
I missed Ann's comment there.
Oh, sorry. I try so hard to get it exact right.
Ann says, does Oglethorpe Bluff have anything to do with election offices and the election machines being connected?
I don't know. You stumped me.
I have a response to this. You can read it, Binkley, and I'm going to say.
Mr. Owen says, all should become a poll watcher or a poll worker if you want to make a difference.
I tried to get one of those jobs one year. I had no job, and I thought it would be a good civic thing and modeling behavior for my kids and I think it was like $20 an hour, something ridiculous. Absolutely no chance. I just don't know why, but there's absolute crickets. But I did get the privilege of being a free warehouse observer for like friggin' 15 hours for Mary Norwood, and I absolutely couldn't tell anything. The boxes were sealed I couldn't even get close to the boxes. It was such it was just a sham of a witness thing. I didn't like it at all. But if you could become a poll worker, that would be good. But I think they got that buttoned up. I don't think.
Yeah, well, Happy Faces sort of has it buttoned up for Fulton County, but we've gotten some folks in, and Matt and his team have done a great job. That's Matt Rowensack. On finding problems. That we had a lot of poll watchers, in Fulton County, and we found a ton of problems that you would not believe. And I think we're running out of time today, but next week maybe we will go through all of the problems we found in Fulton County. They're just absolutely amazing.
Last question, and then the big surprise.
All right,
Okay.
Achilles says, so when is Garland going back into court to appeal with the evidence that he has?
Yeah, so it'll probably be next year. We announce the appeal. The process is we announce the appeal, and then it goes to the docket. Once it's docketed, we put it in the brief. So it could be 6 months between today when we announce it and then when it's actually docketed.
Okay, this is so exciting. This is one of my favorite gals. It was such a joy to be in her presence when we did the fundraiser for you, Garland, in person at the Bold Monk Brewery. And I don't want to take a minute of her time. So let us give a big propaganda report welcome to Aviva. Woohoo! Yeah. She is hot.
Thanks.
So, Binkley, can we just put her up bigger than we are? Is there any way to do that? Here we go.
I think so.
I think I got it.
Yeah, there you go.
There she is.
There you go. Right on. Can you so tell us what's happening? I think that you've got a new piece of music for us. Can you tell us about it?
Well, it's so good seeing you, first of all. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming.
I just changed the words a little bit of the transparency song just to include about how we need this audit. So
I love everything about you, Aviva. You really defy stereotypes. You're just, I feel like we just absolutely love it. You cannot put this girl in a basket. Although if she were in a basket, we'd all want to jump in the basket with her. So
at least for a while.
Oh yeah. Yes. I think she'd probably outpace us. She was just one of a kind. Love her to death. I would love to toast you. It's a little early for me because I'm out in LA. But
let's toast to everyone standing up.
Yeah, I wish. Anyway,
it's out there. Do you have water? Anything?
No. I got nothing, babe, but I
got some
cheers to
water.
you. There you go.
Yeah.
Binkley's got the propaganda report mug. I love it.
I have my colloidal throat
You
spray.
have a mouth spray.
There you go.
So, all right, Aviva, we've got about 8 minutes.
Okay.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
And let's hear it.
You want to
Sing.
All right.
Aviva, sing out.
You could sing with me, by the way.
I would not do your song any
Well,
good.
I think we're going to have to do the chorus, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think
I don't know if I have the. All right, I'll
Oh,
try.
that's okay. You'll know.
I'll
You'll
pick
know
it.
when.
I'll pick it
It's
up.
the,
Okay,
It's the doo-doos.
I'll try. Okay, I think I can do that.
Yeah, you can do that.
I think you can do.
Okay.
Yes, everybody
That
learn at home.
out
Too.
is huge. Singing out about issues is like a whole different dimensional vibration that can affect
Yeah.
the multiverse in very strange ways.
And it actually works because we got ballot image passed in the last session after you sung the song. They didn't listen to me.
That's right.
It could have something to do with it. I don't know. How's it sound?
Nice.
All right. Election transparency, let all of the voters see. It limits all dishonesty, because honestly, the truth does set us free. Why are we even having elections if we can't verify all our selections? We see our vote, but what's the QR code say? Dominion machines are hackable and must go away. Everybody.
Do, 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 do. Do, do. Do, 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 do. Do, do.
Election fraud's an inside job. It's not voter fraud. When the voters are robbed, we're all in this together. See, the answer is transparency. When we go to the polls, we need to be certain. No Wizard of Oz voting. Let's pull back
the curtain.
It's not left or right. We all want the truth. Need forensic audits. Please follow through. Dominion images no longer hidden. No reason they should be forbidden or deleted. It's quite the contrary. They are not
It's not proprietary.
Election transparency. Now don't let your parents see. They'll punish all dishonesty, because honestly, the truth does set us free. Do, 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 do,
Do, do, do, do, do, do, do.
Why do we have to fight to have this audit? We're stumped. Why not inspect the ballots closely before they're swept into the dump? If we can hear witnesses testify, we all will be pumped. I think we all can agree, election transparency. Get us over this hump. Do, do, do,
Do, do,
do,
do,
do,
do,
do,
do, do, do.
Election integrity needs ballot transparency. It limits all dishonesty, because honestly, the truth does set us free. The truth does set us free. The truth does set us free. Do, 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 do,
Do,
do.
do.
Yay! That was awesome.
Thank you.
If you ever get a chance to see Aviva in person live, she puts on a fantastic show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When can people see you live?
Every Saturday at Golden Drops Cafe. As long as I'm in town and not touring, then I'm in Decatur at Golden Drops Cafe, 1788 Claremont Road, 3 to 5 every Saturday. I'll also be there this Thursday for the Veterans Rally.
Whoops. Did I screw that up? I was trying to type and I moved everything around.
11 a.m. That's okay.
Maybe Binkley, you can put that up every Saturday at Golden Drops Cafe.
3 to 5. Mm-hmm.
3 to 5. That would be awesome. So, yeah, you've been in it from the beginning. I met you through Garland, through our efforts. And it was really nice because even during lockdown, we all got together and had a great time. And you pointed out that our crowd was the only one still hugging and grooving on each other. And it was quite a variety of demographics and everything. And we just, it's values really bring people together.
Mhm.
They really do.
So what else? Binkley, do you want to put that up as a banner? Let me see. I'll do it. Give me a second. I was just gonna.
I'm hoping to record a little Christmas parody about everything that's going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little preview of that. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's because DeSantis. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that now, but
Well, don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, you want to save the
DeSantis
surprise.
clause.
That's good.
Exactly, DeSantis clause. He's doing some good standing up for our rights, so I thought it would be a good way to.
So tell me if I'm wrong. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Yeah, 3 to 5. So it's earlier than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Wow. That's awesome. All right. So guys, is there anything else we want to get in before we wrap up? When's the next thing that we can see you at, Garland? And if there's anything special Aviva wants to tell us about, maybe Aviva can tell us where we can find her music. I have a sticker on my laptop that says, Unmask the Hempdemic.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you want to share any of that stuff with us.
Yeah, if please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you feel like it. And on my YouTube channel, you can watch the movie I put together called Hempdemic 2020, which basically talks about how this amazing plant, cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, has been basically taken away from us from the same people who are pushing a lot of pharmaceutical drugs and also Teflon, which has caused a huge epidemic with PFAS within our water. And so basically,
I feel, like that anybody who is in favor of gun rights should also be in favor of hemp rights, because that was actually given directly from God.
And I followed, the legislators who are making the Georgia laws, and I found some corruption, and I exposed that in the movie as well. And so I'm working on part 2. It's pretty challenging.
Is that, if you search YouTube for Aviva and the Flying Penguins, is that how you would find your YouTube channel, or what?
Sometimes it pops up because a lot of my videos have the title Aviva and the Flying Penguins, like all my songs, pretty much, or AATFP to abbreviate.
And hemp is different than THC, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but what I say in the movie is that it's the same plant. Some plant is bred to have high THC, some is low. So it's also similar to poppy seeds and opium. But also by separating out the definition, it has also been pretty corrupt, because even here in Georgia, they have a law for hemp, like you can't sell the raw hemp. So that means you can't grow it for hemp seeds and hemp salad, which has no THC. Yeah. Because most people, in all honesty, are growing it for CBD because that's where the money is. But you can use hemp for so many other things. And so by making the processing fee really high, it's not worth it for someone to grow it seeds and hemp protein. And so we get it all imported pretty much from Canada or Tennessee. Tennessee, they're able to grow it without, the laws in all of our bordering states are a lot less restrictive than Georgia laws. So
yeah, regulations, policies, the devils are in the details with those things. And it's good that somebody like you, the way Garland really digs into it, the details that people really, unless you dedicate a lot of time to it, aren't really going to be able to figure it out. So it's nice to have people that we trust who can figure it out for us. You don't have to agree with people's ideology or politics or whatever, but what we're talking about is information, facts. We're talking about policies and, and when you approach it with integrity, you can have that conversation with real facts instead of being manipulated constantly like we are.
Yeah.
Look at the corporations that are here in Georgia and which ones might not want a hemp industry to thrive.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't for a long time, it's all of the uses for hemp, the industrial uses, and some of the things that Viva's already mentioned. And I think people don't really understand that when they talk about hemp or cannabis, all they think about is what Brad said, THC and weed and all that. Well, I mean, it's not that. So we've been programmed to believe that that's all it is, and it's not. It's got so many industrial and agricultural uses.
But when they highly regulate and refine and stuff, that THC becomes almost weaponized. It becomes decoupled with those compounds that make it a medicine. And it's just the more they get involved, the further away it gets from God's gift and the more universal uses. And I'm not a big fan of like hyper refining things like that.
Hemp is so complicated in its terpene and cannabinoid molecular structure. It changes. There's such a spectrum. And then there is even a study going on in New York right now where if someone germinates a seed by sucking on the seed for 45 minutes, then it imprints the individual's DNA and it grows medicine just to repair your DNA.
I think I want to do a swap cast. We have a CBD guy I know and love who sponsors our show, and I've been wanting to do a swap cast with him. And Binkley, I talked to Cam about it. They know him. Maybe Aviva can join us, and we can really dig into this topic and make just a whole show out of it.
Yeah. I would love to.
Oh, that would be great. All right. Well, on that cheerful note, Garland, we'll talk to you as soon as there's another update or sooner if you want to just call a show. Aviva, you're always welcome, but I'll get in touch with you about doing something really specific, maybe as a Christmas present for everybody.
Great. Yeah, we'll have more information in a couple of weeks. And meantime, if you want to know more about hemp, you can watch Aviva's Hempdemic movie. It's pretty captivating.
Really? Oh,
I spent 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's something
that my teenagers would watch with me.
Yeah.
They would. They get a kick out of it. They really would.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you. How powerful propaganda is as well.
Yes. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm going to dig into that. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Aviva, you're gorgeous. Garland, we all love you. Brad, thank you for everything. And we'll see you next time.
Later.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night.